What up, guys? I'm with my good friend, business mentor, and one of the OGs of powerlifting, Mark Bell here. And he's benched 585. You've also benched 700 or 800 in a shirt?
854.
854 in a shirt. And also you said almost 900 on the boards?
Yeah, I did 10 plates on each side at one point in a training session with 10 45-pound plates on each side, which is 935 pounds, yeah, off some boards, yeah.
So I think he knows a thing or two about benching, and I wanted to go through some of your favorite benching tips on how to get a strong bench.
Yeah, first thing, we need a good stance. You need a good setup. Like, I know you like to shoot guns.
Yeah.
Like, you can't just like shoot a gun like this, right? Like,
yeah.
You need a stance. There's a stance for everything. I know you like martial arts, so if we're gonna square off and fight, like, we need to get a good solid stance and make sure you have a good base. Otherwise, you're gonna get thrown on your head, right?
Yeah. So what's the first thing?
Powerlifting's no different. We need to have a good stance. So just go ahead and just sit down, whatever normal way you'd sit down. You're gonna go ahead and lay back. One thing that I like to do personally is I like to bring my feet up onto the actual bench to initiate some of this.
Yeah.
And I like to have my back be totally flat. One of the reasons for that is I operate really well with a good understanding of what it is I'm trying to achieve. And if I can feel what a flat back feels like, then I can know what the opposite of that feels like, and that would be to kind of arch the back. Some people say, like, hey, you shouldn't really arch your back when you're bench pressing, but your back is gonna arch anyway. As soon as your feet go down to the ground, your back's gonna be arched, and you can see, I can put my hand right through here already, even without him really trying to arch. So go ahead and bring your feet back up just for a second. What I like to do is I like to grab a hold of the bar, and all the different stuff that we do here at Super Training, whether it's bench, squat, or deadlift, we always utilize the bar to get into a better position. So first thing, I mentioned the stance. Well, the first thing in a bench press is your grip. We need to make sure that we have a proper grip. How do you know what the proper grip is for you? Well, it just depends on wherever you're the strongest. So it might take some trial and error for you to discover what feels best for you, what causes no harm, like what doesn't hurt, and what allows you to lift the most amount of weight. For most people, I think doing what you're doing right here, pinkies on the ring.
Yeah.
These are power rings, and this is this here is called knurling, and this is the smooth part of the bar. So some people can use the smooth part of the bar to judge where their hands are. Some people will go index finger kind of close to the smooth part of the bar. They'll do what we call thumb away from.
That's what I learned in like wrestling in high school.
Yeah.
This thumbs away, like that's how we gauged it. But then over time, I've tried here, I've tried middle finger, I've tried close grip, and for me, the best was pinky on the ring.
So I think you either use the smooth part of the bar or use the power rings as a gauge to guide yourself to figure out where you want to put your hands. For me, when I was doing my absolute heaviest benches, my ring finger was on that little power ring there. But decide for yourself what feels the best.
Did you notice too, as you were gaining weight or losing weight, that you went in and out at all?
Yeah, as I got older and as I got more mature and as I got bigger, like I used to start like with my hands in pretty close, and as I got a little bit bigger, my hands kind of started going out a little wider. And I think that's because my structure was getting wider this way as well. My shoulder width was getting wider. So if you're a big guy and you're benching in real close, it's gonna be really uncomfortable and it might be a little weird on your elbows. But again, just find what feels best for you. So now he's got a good grip on the bar. And what I'm gonna have Bart do right now is to pull his upper body off the bench and to tuck the shoulder blades in. There you go, and that can be achieved a bunch of different ways. See, he actually did it a little bit different than the way that I do it, but that he still achieved the same thing. Now what I'm gonna ask him to do is put his legs down slowly, but keep a lot of this arch. We wanna try to keep, see how high he's got the rib cage? Obviously he's not gonna be able to keep the rib cage up that high the entire time, but we're gonna put the feet down on the ground slowly and make sure we don't unwind anything, and you can see the rib cage is still up. He's in a really excellent position to do a bench press here. Now the way that you unrack the bar is also gonna be really important as well, because he could undo everything that he just worked for in half a second by going push like this and unracking the weight with the shoulders. Remember, the legs are a huge part of this component too. So what I like to do is I like to try to drive my heel down towards the ground. Even if my heel is off the ground, I still like to see people try to shove their heel down towards the ground, because what it will do is it will put your leg on a little bit of a slope. Your hip will be the top part of the slope here, which would be here. And if he's pushing his heels towards the ground, then he'll be on a downward slope here. What that does is that keeps his stomach, it helps keep the rib cage, it helps keep the thoracic spine, the chest, helps keep everything stable and helps keep everything up. The reason why we want an arch, and the reason why we want leg drive, we want an arch to decrease the range of motion and to increase stability. We want leg drive to help us increase the stability. Your leg drive can also determine how far you're pressing the bar as well, because if you give up on your legs at any point and you start to kind of go like this, your range of motion is going to increase because now you're benching like this, right? But if my legs are engaged the whole time and I'm flexing my butt and I'm driving this way the whole time, now I'm in a power position and the range of motion is going to be reduced. So less range of motion, and we're trying to increase the stability. The way that he's going to unrack this bar is you want to actually try to pull the weight out of the rack like you're doing a lat pullover. The best way to administer that, if you're going to lift off for somebody, is to, you always, in my opinion, you always want to have the barbell in the front of the rack. So this way it's the least amount of distance for us to go this way. But I'm also going, when I help Bart out of the rack here, I'm not going to pick up a lot. I'm just going to pick up a little bit just to get him over the hooks, and I'm going to push it towards him a bit, and we're just going to go like this right there, and I'm just going to let him have it from there. As opposed to sometimes when somebody's doing a lift off, they'll go and they'll lift him out of position, and we don't want to do that. So it's real slight on both sides. Him lifting the weight out, me helping him lift the weight out, I'm just going to hand it to him right there. Then he could post it in his triceps. From here, what we're going to do, I also need to point out, there's more than one way to bench press, okay? This is my opinion, this is my interpretation of how to bench press, but there's many people that do it many different ways. So there's more than one way to do it. I like to squeeze the bar, I like to make a fist, and I like to stack my wrist and my elbows when I do a bench press. So as he brings the weight downward, he's going to head towards the nips, these guys right here. Can I get a hey now?
Hey now.
And I also, you can see how he's bending the wrist back. I don't really like to see that, so I like to throttle the weight a little bit more like that. Now just bring the elbow back in a little bit more, in closer, about there. The reason why I like the elbows to be in like that is it helps us to keep a tight back. And if we can get it over top camera angle here for a second, you can see the lats are engaged. You can see like right here, he's got some meaty lats right here. He's gonna actually be able to press with them out of the bottom. Go ahead and press. And you can kind of almost shove the weight up. When you get it down correctly, it'll almost feel like you're pushing yourself away from the barbell. So bring the weight down again and kind of shove that weight up. There you go. One other component to this, to bringing the weight down and tucking the elbows in, on the way down, I like to think about bending the bar. On the way back up, I like to think about spreading the bar apart. Bend the bar, spread the bar apart. Bend the bar, spread the bar apart. So he's gonna work on bending the bar right here. And he's gonna spread the bar apart. And when you spread the bar apart, it's okay for your elbows to kick out. Your elbows are supposed to kind of flare out. You don't want to intentionally really drive them way out right at the beginning of the lift, but as he comes up, you're gonna see they're gonna naturally come out at least a little bit every single time, especially when you get more weight on there. With just this on there, you're not gonna feel much. You're gonna notice, you know, Bart has been powerlifting for years, so he knows where to put the barbell, but we wanna put the barbell on the sternum. Because if we travel up a lot higher, we won't be reducing the range of motion, we'll be increasing. And then a lot of times we also see the elbows come out. The elbows come out and you end up, and he can't even really do it because it's stretching his pecs probably like crazy. And it doesn't feel good. I'm not saying that you can't bench that way, but I don't think it's the most optimal way to bench press. I think the most optimal way is down here more where he was, and then really tightening up that back and then pressing firmly with your triceps and your arms. The last component to this whole thing is we want to try to drop the forearm onto the bicep and drop the tricep onto the lat. One more thing to mention here and to note is that we have a little bit of a curve going on with the way that the weight is pressed. So he's initiating from down here, and then the barbell is ending up between his, kind of where his shoulders are and where his pecs are. He's not really floating the weight over his eyes though, because then that would be heading back towards the J-hooks way too much. There we go. You get a little weight on there? Get a little weight on the bar?
Yeah.
All right. First things first, you know, get those shoulders set. So you already got the shoulders set. Now his legs are in place. He's getting his grip. Here we go, 1, 2, 3, up. Just gonna do 3 reps. Last one. Form's looking great. Sometimes people will have the weight as they're like trying to bench press, they'll have the weight in their fingers more. There's a few things you can do about that. Number one, you can just squeeze the bar harder. Number two is you can put wrist wraps on. But you don't want to just put wrist wraps on, because that's, you know, that's going to kind of just put a Band-Aid over top of the whole thing. You want to make sure that you're really squeezing the bar. Sometimes I think people also will roll their wrists back because they're trying to tuck their elbows so hard. So if you're tucking your elbows in too hard, your wrists might start to roll back, and you're going to lose a lot of power that way. You know, if we were going to fight and I tried to, like, you know, hit him like this, it wouldn't be very effective, right? But if I stacked my knuckles and my wrist and my elbow, now I got a better shot at hitting him pretty good, right? So I have a little bit different setup than what Bart was doing, but it's just a tiny bit different. And you're going to see I'm going to use the bar to get myself lined up on, get my shoulders lined up and everything, just as he was doing. So I lay back here, and when I do squats and when I do deadlifts and any of the movements, I always like to kind of know what the opposite of what I'm doing feels like. So again, I'll put my feet up on the bench. I get my back totally flat. I actually kind of flex my stomach just to feel my lower back pushed into the bench. Now I got a decent idea of what that's like, and I know that I don't want to bench press this way because look at my arms, you know, are extending up above like the hooks here, right? So instead of that, I'm gonna use the bar to get myself in place. When I'm on the bench, approximately the barbell is like in line with like my nose or my eyes. Just kind of depends on the person, but like if you're too far this way on the bench, if your head is too far over the pad, then you're probably gonna hit the hooks a lot when you go to come up out of the bench press. So I grab the bar here, get my grip. I'm gonna use my upper body to pull my shoulder blades together, and then I'm gonna shove my shoulder blades and elbows down towards my butt, and now I'm in place. If I didn't feel like I really did that good a job of it, I can try it again and really kind of lock it in there and kind of wiggle and make sure it feels good. Now all I gotta do from here is just put the legs down. And then how you have your feet is kind of up to you. Like some people will kick them back underneath them and they like to bench press like that. I always like to have my feet more flat, and then I flex my butt. And as I have my butt flexed, I'm pushing towards Bart the whole time. And then to unrack weights, if you're unracking by yourself, unfortunately, sometimes you have to push your elbows out a bit. But I've unracked some pretty big weights myself and learned that you can get used to it, and it actually can help increase your bench press a little bit. So you actually want to start with your elbows out if you're unracking to yourself. Elbows are out, you're gonna push the weight up, and then just try to bring the weight from there. And then now you have to lock the elbows in. We got to bend the bar, as I was talking about earlier. Bend the bar, legs are tight, everything's kind of up in the air as much as I can get it. And now we're gonna bring the weight in here. And you should be able to create so much like tightness and tension that the barbell is like kind of zeroed out. Like it doesn't even feel like it can go any further when I get to the bottom of the bench press here. And the reason for that is, as we get to the bottom, we want to be as tight as possible because that's kind of the hardest position to press out of. And we don't want the elbow traveling too far past the midline of the body, which that would look more like this, where the elbow is really coming way down past my body, and it's a ton of stress on the pecs and shoulders. It's just going to be limiting because you're not benching with your whole body. You bring the weight lower, you bench in here, and you go like that. Last little thing for me, when I was benching the big weights, I would actually kind of drop the weight a little bit. and I would do it very quickly. So I'd drop the weight like this, and I'd lift my head up. That's just kind of like a style that I started to develop, something that maybe you could advance into at some other point. But I'd bring the weight down, and as soon as I got to about here, I'd lift up just a bit, and then I'd push into it. And I was giving up a little bit at the bottom because I was losing some of that position at the bottom of staying real rigid. But it just felt good to me, and it helped me with a pause too, because when I got to the bottom, in a powerlifting meet, they want you to pause the weight. And so my pause was just this. And I would just push it back up whether they said press or not.
That's hilarious.
Yep. There you go.
There you go. Thank you so much, Mark, for walking us through some of his favorite pointers of how to bench. I think some of the key pointers are getting a good setup, making sure you bend the bar. I think that's something I've heard over and over again. That's super important because it just helps engage, stacks the joints, engage all the muscles that you don't even think are involved in pressing, like some of your pulling muscles, like your lats and your biceps, and also spreading the bar, coming back up. Where can they find more tips and advice from you if they want to hear more stuff?
You can check out any forms of social media that I got, YouTube. I'm all over the place. You'll find me on there somewhere.
Yeah, just Google, YouTube, Mark Bell, you'll find something. See you guys next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.